Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Nancy Chen. Today we take you from coast to coast, sharing stories of unity and innovation, bringing our nation together. We first turn our attention to a somber milestone. The COVID-19 pandemic has now claimed more than 1 million American lives. David Begnaud met one man who started an online community to memorialize them on a Twitter account called Faces of COVID.
Alex Goldstein has waited nearly a year and a half.
Oh my God.
To meet Karen Nassim-Binney.
In the flesh. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. Better now for seeing you in the flesh.
You know,
It's been too long in the making.
I've never met anybody from Faces of COVID.
Really?
It's always just been from behind the screen. And so you're the first person I've actually met whose loved one was on the platform.
You're kidding, my God.
I know.
How lucky, I feel honored.
Karen's late husband, Stephen Richard, a kind, funny, gentle soul whose heart and hands were always open to helping others, was memorialized on the Faces of COVID Twitter account, which was created by Goldstein as a way to personalize the pandemic's toll.
No one else has put a face to these victims the way you have. Otherwise, they're just a number. You've brought humanity to this god-awful pandemic.
You tell me a little more about Stephen?
He was 1 in a million. We had a mad love affair. You know, for the 30 years that we were together, he was salt of the earth. He was a kayaker. He was a photographer. And he was the type that could be really invisible. So he always got the most poignant shots.
How'd you meet?
We met through a mutual friend. And I looked at him and I thought, oh my God, he's the boy next door. This is the kind of normal guy I should like.
Goldstein has featured more than 7,000 stories on Faces of COVID.
I try to wake up each morning, look at the submissions that have come in from family members, do a bit of my own research. I've done it almost every single day since March 28th, 2020. It has become more of a required ritual in my life than I think I could have ever anticipated.
In many posts, it is the picture which gives him pause.
All that Faces of COVID tries to do is get folks to stop just for a minute and bear witness and look at their faces and say their names and create just a little space for them. I love this one, this quote that the family gave. He was never one for religiosity, but he wanted you to know that if you find him in heaven, he will gladly accept a good beer and a juicy steak. Brazilian, please, American food is terrible. I mean, this is really vulnerable stuff. You are opening up on the most famously toxic platform in social media. You are putting your loved one out there with a couple lines about who they were, and then you're holding your breath to see what the world does with it. And the things that people share, it just always blows me away.
This is like a digital cemetery. You just put some of the quotes that I wish headstones had on them.
Right, right. It's a good way to put it.
Roughly 5,000 people saw the face of Linda Benson of Oklahoma City.
This was one where the photo hit me, just this kind of relaxed smile. You talk about what would you want on your tombstone as a parent. My brother and I were raised and taught by a wise lady, and we are forever grateful for her love. She was a sweet, sensitive, and encouraging person. I mean, you know, what else could you want as your legacy? This one was particularly powerful because—
Who is this?
So this is Dr. Chandra, 57, of Ohio. He was a cardiologist. And I had found his story through a news article, and his son reached out and saw it on Faces of COVID and said, can I add some words?
What were the words his son wanted to add?
He said, Dr. Chandra was a fierce advocate for his patients and for the health of his community. He spent his life educating others on preventative medicine. Caretaking to him was not a profession, but a calling. He approached everyone as equals with kindness and love. He is remembered fondly by his community, one that stretches 3 continents.
The 38-year-old Goldstein, who spent his late 20s as a press secretary for a former Massachusetts governor, sees the Faces of COVID Twitter account as a first draft of history.
This history is unfolding right now as we speak.
You feel protective about it?
Oh yeah. I feel a responsibility to make sure that these people are treated with dignity and respect.
I heard someone say over the course of the pandemic, in speaking about someone who died of COVID, may their memory be a blessing. You are preserving memories.
I'm trying. It is too easy in this pandemic, if it hasn't happened to you, to look the other way. And we need to be uncomfortable and vulnerable enough to sit with it and to look at it and to say the names and look at the pictures. I know how hard it is. I feel it every morning. But the alternative, it's not acceptable.
What has been the impact of this Twitter account?
You know, what I hope the impact of Faces of COVID has been is to restore some semblance of empathy into how we see each other. Anyone can come here and say goodbye and watch a bunch of strangers participate in that with them. And I think there's meaning in that. I hope there's meaning in that.
After the break, a teenager determined to rewrite history. Now we take you to Virginia, where a high school student is leading an effort to get more females, especially women of color, into the pages of history books. Nicole Killian has the story.
Prasida Padmanabhan is leading a modern-day crusade to rewrite the history books.
So some of these are really easy, some of them are not.
In one of the country's largest school districts. The 17-year-old is creating an entire course of study for elementary and middle school students in Fairfax County, Virginia.
What motivated you to develop this curriculum?
Honestly, I think it was just my own experience with the lack of education around women's history. I felt like, especially women of color, were often just, their stories would go untold. I am a first-generation Indian, and my mom's an Indian immigrant, and so I think growing up hearing her stories has always been something that I have taken and wanted to learn more about and always been inspired by.
She founded a group called WHERE, Women for Education, Advocacy and Rights.
Only 24% of the historical figures and curriculums are women.
The organization launched a petition last year to integrate more women's history in their local schools. It comes amid a heated debate over public education curriculums in Virginia. Earlier this year, Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin signed an executive order banning public educational programs that he claims are inherently divisive, like critical race theory.
What do you say to any parents out there or students who feel, why am I learning this? Why should I have to learn this?
I think that, if we disregard what really happened in our history, then we're not getting the full picture and we're not going to be informed citizens going forward.
When you first read her proposal, what did you think?
I thought, I need to meet this person.
Prasida's efforts caught the attention of Dr. Deborah March, an education specialist who connected her with Fairfax County teachers.
If you just look at curriculum standards and notice who gets to be an individual with a name and a biography and who is identified as a group, women during the Civil War, right? And so Prasida really helped us lift up the individual stories and contributions of women.
From the Revolutionary War,
we all know Paul Revere was the man who said that the British are coming. But Sybil Ludington was a 16-year-old girl who rode horseback overnight to deliver the same exact message.
To the Civil War,
Susie King Taylor, who was a nurse during the Civil War,
and civil rights.
Claudette Colvin started the Montgomery bus boycotts. She actually started it 9 months before Rosa Parks.
We're going to use some resources that WHERE has created.
Each lesson is crafted as a presentation to spark discussions about game-changing female figures.
She was born to a free black family in the North.
Julie Carrill teaches 6th grade American history.
Even you were saying, this is a lesson for you as well.
We featured 5 different women in the lesson today, and I had never heard of any of them.
A learning experience for teacher and students.
It means that maybe I can do something important. I think that they should be taught all year round.
If we learned more about this, who knows how many more women we would acknowledge and know.
What is your ultimate goal?
My ultimate goal is that every student across Virginia and across the country just learns equally about women. I don't ever want a student to ask the question, why does women's history matter? I want people to just know that I want women's history to be history, and I want that to be a concept that every student learns and understands.
To empower more diverse voices in the future.
We now turn our attention to a problem facing some transgender women. 1 in 5 transgender people has experienced homelessness at some point in their lives. But there's one nonprofit in Tennessee providing permanent housing to those at risk. Adriana Diaz shows us how.
If you're going to do survival kits, I can do the banana pudding. Every Thursday at this park in Memphis, you can find Kayla Gore handing out hot meals and hope to those living on the streets. You're welcome. Kayla herself was homeless 10 years ago. Other people who were experiencing homelessness kind of showed me how to stay safe because I'm a transgender woman, I'm Black. So they taught me how to sleep on top of buildings, how to hide my clothes during the day. Being cared for by the community is what informs her work now at My Sister's House, an organization she co-founded in her hometown of Memphis that provides emergency housing to transgender people in need. A lot of people will not understand the experiences of trans people not having access to jobs in the first place. We have access to menial jobs like in a warehouse. Tennessee is an at-will state, so you can be fired for any reason or no reason. She says trans people face higher discrimination at work, which leads to job loss. But there's another issue. A lot of folks don't have addresses where they can actually put on an application to get a job.
So you can't get a house or rent an apartment because you don't have a job and stable employment. And it's hard to get stable employment if you don't have an address to show where you live.
Exactly. It makes no sense. Trans people are more likely to live in temporary housing, hotels, rooms for rent, or staying with friends and family, situations which can quickly decline to homelessness. That's especially true for Black trans women, more than half of whom have been homeless. Then when COVID-19 hit, Gore says the demand for housing at her organization tripled. Because people weren't able to work, people were being kicked out of their places and they were coming here and we didn't have the capacity to house people. That's when the Tiny Homes Project was born. The mission, to build 20 tiny homes for trans women of color to own. That way they'll never have to rent again. We're in hopes of acquiring all of these lots. Through crowdfunding and donations, the nonprofit raised almost $600,000 to purchase land and break ground. And almost a year since the project began. The first homeowner is Alexis Jackson, who was once homeless after a fallout with her family.
This would be my kitchen space. My stove would go right here.
This 400 square feet is her sanctuary.
I was in the depths of alcoholism, financial struggle, and I don't ever want to go back to where I was at. My living room space and the way my ceilings are set up, that's my favorite part of my home.
Providing these homes to trans folks is giving them that safety and security. A vast majority of the trans murders are associated with people who are experiencing homelessness. I feel like Harriet Tubman. I feel like I'm giving people a pathway to success in life. Harriet Tubman had to do her work in secrecy. We're doing it out loud and proud.
Accessibility for everyone is key to our next story, too. Oftentimes, people who are paralyzed or have disabilities don't have access to beaches. But Manuel Bojorquez met some volunteers in Miami Beach who are making waves.
For Sergio Echeverria, this isn't just a day at the beach.
Oh man, this is so good.
Nicknamed Aquaman, the ocean has always been his second home. But a tractor accident this winter left him paralyzed from the waist down.
Did you think you'd ever be able to get back in the water again? I had my doubts. I really did. But here you are. I did, and I've been proven wrong. And I like that.
Once a month, a small army of volunteers build out this stretch of Miami Beach. Plastic mats for the wheelchairs and special floating chairs, transporting folks for a joyful swim.
It's amazing.
Sabrina Cohen is the woman behind these adaptive beach days.
I'm crying of joy.
So when you see people go into the water for the first time in years,
we all cry. It's like tears of joy. It's a gift to give to others.
Cohen is among the 61 million U.S. adults living with a disability. A car accident left her a quadriplegic at 14.
For a moment when you're in the water, you are like anybody else. Any mobility devices that you use just wash away for a moment.
They wash away. You're floating. That's the great equalizer.
It sure is.
She's now working to install a permanent location to reach more than the 8,000 they've already helped.
It's like a small strand of miracles that just keep coming together.
Each one with a smile that just washes over.
Coming up, we'll show you how hairdressers are going green to cut the waste. This is Eye on America. We close today with some salons that are helping to beautify more than just their customers. Millions of pounds of hair, foil, plastic, and metal go straight from salons into landfills every year. But now there's a nationwide initiative to help the industry go green. Dana Jacobson visits a salon that's getting a makeover.
Whether it's a hair salon in Brooklyn, New York, or one in the Atlanta suburbs, the scene is certainly familiar. Color, cuts, and blowouts. But what's beautiful for the individual is not for the environment.
I think that a lot of clients don't realize how much waste a salon produces. 10,000 pounds of foils a day are going into our landfill. Every little bit of leftover color. So when
Jennifer Barber is general brand manager for the southern-based Bob Steele salons, which in the last year became certified sustainable, meaning they recycle 95% of their waste.
we felt it was the right thing to do to support our community and be a leader and make sure that we're doing what's right to lower our carbon footprint.
Something that has resonated with customers, like Lauren Ramsey.
Does it matter to you to know that the salon recycles all that it does?
Absolutely. I've been a customer here for about 15 years, so it's one of the best things about this place. I think every company should make efforts to be environmentally friendly and green. I think that's just the way the world is this day.
The Bob Steele salons aren't recycling on their own. They're a part of the Green Circle Salons, a collaborative formed to make recycling as easy and affordable as possible for individual shops.
This is where most of our recycling happens. You can see these are the Green Circle boxes that we have here.
Do you think you could do this if you were just doing it on your own?
No, not after learning how they do it. And the amount of recycling that we're doing, I can say, at least at one of our smallest salons, I'm doing a box every other day where I'm filling it and able to ship it off. I mean, our large salon in Atlanta that has 34 chairs, we're producing, 5 boxes a week or more in recycling.
All coming here.
So we're at the Green Circle Salons Illinois facility, and this is where we receive all of the waste from salons across the United States.
Shane Price is the founder and CEO.
Kind of see the bales of foil right there.
The idea for Green Circle was sparked when the entrepreneur and outdoorsman was looking for his next project, needing a haircut, and stepped into a salon for the very first time.
I randomly kind of picked the salon. I went into the salon. I sat down and I had this moment of surprise and shock to see the amount of garbage that was building up in the salon and just simply being thrown out, sent to landfill. And so as we dug into the issue, we came to realize that this wasn't an isolated case in my salon, but in fact, it's a situation that's endemic to the salon industry.
And the numbers were staggering.
Every single minute, salons are throwing about 877 pounds of waste into landfill.
Every minute?
Every minute. So that's about 500,000 pounds a day. And what's shocking about that is 95% of that is recyclable. It can go back into circulation and back into our economy and create value.
It's a message and a mission which Price has been sharing ever since.
We've built a wastewear community of salon professionals who have shared and helped us to shape and build this program so that it works inside this industry.
Simple as let's find a recycling plant that will do this for us?
Oh, for sure.
And then find the first salon?
For sure. It was 2 feet and a heartbeat knocking on doors, getting told to, just leave the salon. We don't take solicitors.
Yeah.
And me kind of pushing through a little bit and saying, listen, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to pick up your hair clippings and your foils. And yes, I was throwing the waste in my car, in the back of my car, for sure, and taking it to the recycling company. I think at one time, we stored the hair clippings in a barn in the early days.
It's coming. A blob of oil, possibly 2 million gallons, creeping to shore, threatening to become America's worst environmental disaster.
In 2010, Green Circle was able to get those hair clippings down to the Gulf of Mexico to aid in the BP oil spill cleanup. Publicity from that would help launch the business in the U.S. Now, 13 years after its founding, there are about 4,000 Green Circle affiliated salons across the U.S. and Canada.
So this is recycled plastic and recycled hair that's been combined to form a new type of biocomposite material. This is the hair fiber right here.
Weird. But the company's growth has gone beyond its salon partners and into the sustainability sphere.
We've explored different possibilities with hair. Right now, we've made a biocomposite material working alongside Virginia Tech. This brings recycled plastics and recycled hair together to make this new formulation, and we're able to make these recycling bins that go back into salons.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we have worked and are working with a research group in California to understand how we can turn hair into a keratin soup, into an amino acid soup, and use these amino acids as a biostimulant for agricultural purposes.
Price says it's a necessary shift in our collective thinking to see all waste as a resource.
So whether it's masks or capes, gowns, all of this is just plastic that can be shredded and can be repelletized into pellets, plastic beads, and then turned into new PPE and new products that, we need to use.
So hair chemical dyes, I didn't even know that could be recycled.
All right, so we work with our partners to separate these chemicals, a water layer and an oil layer. Okay, the water layer can be neutralized into salt and water and go right back into the wastewater grid safely. The oil layer is refined a little bit and actually fuel the system that powers this process to happen at the plant.
And while Green Circle works to reduce the eco footprint of salons, its own impression has expanded, including beauty brands like L'Oreal and Redken in the mission.
And each one of these brands has their own initiative. Some of them we plant trees with, some of them we do work with ocean plastic and getting ocean plastic out of the oceans. When we bring all of these sort of stakeholders together, again, the salon owners or the spa owners, their staff, the manufacturers of the products, it's only together that we could build the right solutions that addresses everybody's needs and at the same time dramatically reduces the impact to the planet.
Thank God you needed a haircut that day.
Thank God I needed a haircut that day, yeah.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News. I'm Nancy Chen. Thank you for watching Eye on America.